Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Gridiron Review. Coming up on the big show, we'll talk high schools. Of course, two good college wins locally for Navy and Maryland this week, and even the Redskins and Ravens win in the same week. What the heck is going on with football around here, Bill? A lot of winning going on around here.
Right, it's a little bit different than last season's. It's nice to see.
No doubt about that. And, of course, the weather has been a major factor. High school games 2 weeks in a row now, Bill, have started, they've stopped, they've started, they've stopped, they've moved to the next day. And it has really created a havoc for county athletic directors, coaches, and players over the first couple of weeks of the season. Same thing on the youth league level. The good news is when you play on turf, you don't really have as big an issue. I know some of the games that were played on natural grass this past week and unfortunately did not make it through all of the weather. I had a daughter that played field hockey on Sunday in the rain, and thankfully it was on turf. And all those great turf fields that we have around Anne Arundel County now, if you're a youth league parent, you certainly enjoy those because it's a lot less makeup games than you have out there. This week, and hoping to see some of these highlights that you'll see as we're talking here for the moment, the youth league side. A couple of huge wins this week. On the lower level at 80 pound is a rematch last year of Generals Highway and the Chargers. And Generals Highway off to a great start, 3-0 now, as they were winners 20-0 over Pasadena and the Chargers. Meanwhile, Bill, our highlights this week, we want to thank Demetrius Ballard for running these down for us. Old Mill and the Panthers in a classic at the varsity U level. Old Mill wins by a score of 13-6. And as you're watching the highlights, keep your eyes on Old Mill's number one. Our man Gio had a huge game. Running on the defensive line, he was everywhere.
Right. Scored both touchdowns.
He was everywhere for Old Mill. So, and we want to thank Demetrius Ballard for running those highlights down for us this week. And each and every week, we're going to do our best to highlight some youth league film that we're able to get our hands on. Because it's funny, one of the great discussions this week on the message board was about people filming games and where they can film them from and their behavior while they're filming the games. So, look, I mean, we all know everybody's got a cell phone now, a regular camera.
Video cameras.
Is trying to film all of the youth league games. And it's certainly going to be a very valuable tool for us. And we appreciate all the cooperation of the coaches in advance. If your tape is requested, we appreciate you passing it along to us. So, a great win for Old Mill in that varsity U game. And congratulations to them on the big win.
That was a bit of an upset, you know.
A little bit.
Past the Panthers.
Both teams turned the tables on the other teams from last year.
Right. Well, in the varsity U, the Panthers were in the final last year, and they picked up some players. Apparently, they strengthened a championship team, and everybody had them as the overwhelming favorite in varsity U. So it was a little bit of a surprise that Old Mill beat them. And then the same on the 80-pound game, that was a reversal of last year's result. The Chargers had beaten Generals Highway in the final last year.
Yeah, and of course with the Panthers most notably, and we'll talk about this coming up in our high school segment, the evolution of their program, the continued development of the great program there, it's starting to reap benefits for Chesapeake High School. Another big win for the Cougars this week. We'll give you some of the stats and facts from that game when we return. So when we come back on our next segment of the Gridiron Review, we turn our attention to the high schools, as some big wins this week for Broadneck, South River, comfortable wins there. A huge game between Old Mill and Annapolis. Special teams making a difference in that one. We'll give you all the stats and facts from our high school segment. Coming up, this is the Gridiron Review. Welcome back to the Gridiron Review. Time to talk high schools. Our featured game of the week this week, Arundel and Meade. And boy, Bill, we chose a doozy from this standpoint. The Battle of 175. Meade jumps out 22-0 on Arundel. Yet Jack Walsh's team rallies here, scores the final 26 points of the game to win by a score of 26-22. You obviously live near those communities. You know how much that game means to both sides.
Right, and I had a son that played for Arundel High School, so yeah, the Jerry Mears Trophy is online when they play. Obviously, Jerry Mears, who's in the Anne Arundel County Sports Hall of Fame, he coached at Arundel, led Arundel to a state championship in '75. Then he moved on to Meade and was the athletic director and original football coach at Meade, so it makes perfect sense that the Jerry Mears Trophy is on the line when these two teams play. And Jeremy Spraggins, the running back for Arundel, scored 2 touchdowns in the second half. I think he scored the game winner with about 2:46 remaining.
Yeah, 2:44.
Yeah, right. Time winding down. Austin Sly, the quarterback from Arundel, was already making a little bit of a name for himself. He's a dual threat. He had, like 245 yards passing and also had a big game running. I think he had almost 90 yards rushing. So Austin Sly had a good game. But yeah, Meade jumps out 22-0, had 3 rushing touchdowns, kind of was taking it to Arundel, and things just turned around like crazy in that game. Arundel was off to a 2-0 start, which means the Jack Walsh era is moving in a good direction.
When you replace a legend, Bill, we see this at all levels of sports. When you replace a legendary coach, it is important to get off to a great start. Right. So the parents are not sitting up in the stands garbling. And you like to see this for Jack, because that is the most difficult thing about replacing a guy like Chuck Markowitz, is who comes right after that guy and how fast do they keep winning.
Right, well, and they can't complain because they beat their rival. That's, just like Army wants to beat Navy, etc. Well, this is a huge game for Arundel. You got to beat Meade. I did talk to Jack Walsh, and I said, how's it going so far? And he goes, okay, good. Everything's organized. We won our opener, which was nice. And I said, any complaints from parents? And he said, no, not yet, but it hasn't been settled out as to exactly who's getting playing time and who isn't. So he knows that he's going to have, that's one of the things that a head coach has to deal with now, is the parents who are wondering why little Johnny is not playing as much as they thought he deserves to play.
This isn't youth football anymore.
Yeah.
It's not youth football anymore. So
it's
there's no 5 or 10 plays minimum, depending on what your weight class or your age group is. You earn your playing time out there now on the high school circuit. Old Mill and Annapolis, look, special teams makes a huge difference at the high school level. Christian Polanco makes both extra points for Old Mill, and they pull out a 14-13 win over the Panthers.
Right, and there's a game that was started Friday, I believe just before halftime or right after halftime, I forget which, is when the rain and thunder showers and lightning caused the game to be postponed. They had to pick it up again on Saturday. I think Old Mill was on like the 6-yard line or the 9-yard line. They're in the red zone when play was halted, and ended up scoring a touchdown. Raheem Tall, the great tailback, who you'll hear his name a lot this season. He had 130 yards, 2 touchdowns, scored both Old Mill TDs. And interesting thing on this, both of Old Mill's touchdowns came on a 4th down play. They converted on 4th down, and then, as you mentioned, they made both their extra points. Annapolis did not make one of theirs. You may remember years ago, Annapolis had a really good running back named Ahmad Middleton. And he was an all-county running back. I remember him. He also played on the basketball team. Well, he had 2 sons, and his younger son, Amon Middleton, is now an outstanding player for Annapolis. He had a touchdown run and a nice game for Annapolis. And Annapolis playing pretty good defense. Talked to Nick Goodmalloy, their head coach, and he said he's very proud. They've only given up 3 touchdowns so far this season. So he's feeling pretty good about his defense.
Yeah, and the offense at least had another touchdown this week after only posting 6 points in the first week. Deion Hunt catching a touchdown pass from Deshaun Alston to go with Middleton's touchdown. Mustafa Honeyblue with a couple of interceptions in that game as well. How about the start for the Northeast Eagles? 2-0 for the first time, Bill, since 1996. And
pretty
as
impressive.
I've said, look, brand new stadium up there, new school, new stadium. I think it's a new enthusiasm in the community. Maybe a couple more kids are choosing to stay in the community rather than going outside to maybe private schools. Northeast starting to see a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel here. Off to a great start now, 2-0 after a 26-6 win over Aberdeen.
Right, and a little stability at the top. Head coach Brian Boblitz has been there now 3 or 4 years, and he's bringing stability, and that's what you need. That's how you prevent kids from your school district going to Mount St. Joseph or Archbishop Spalding or whatever the case may be, because there's a lot of talent in that area in the Northeast School District, but unfortunately some of their better players have been going to the private schools because Northeast has struggled, and this is huge. I mean, to start 2-0, very, very impressive for the Eagles. I know Brian is very proud. I mean, to be first time since '96, I mean, good Lord, that is huge. So congratulations to Northeast, and they ran the ball Aberdeen, big time. Had a bunch of 3 guys with big rushing days. Who were they?
Yeah, Bennett Diaz had a couple of touchdowns with a 61-yard run, 133 overall. Josh Crick and Riley Pitt also had TD runs for the Eagles. And again, off to a 2-0 start. And it gets that positive momentum, gets everybody coming to practice every day with a little more pep in their step.
You're listening to the coaches and what they have to say. Their message has some meaning now.
And again, it's as we said, it's a great facility up there at Northeast High School. And certainly glad to see the Eagles off to such a positive start. South River also doing good things here early in the season. Seahawks 40-0 over Glen Burnie.
That was a bit of a surprise. I didn't expect it.
Not that South River won, but I think the margin is somewhat surprising here. And again, Glen Burnie showed some good things in week 1, picking up a victory, but unable to capitalize on them here. As Joe Foy and Nate Carbaugh combining for 249 yards. Delvin Johnson, 67 for the Seahawks, who've won 4 of their last 5 dating back to last year. So momentum from returning players coming back into this season, and you can start to see, I mean, this was a program that at one point had an incredibly proud winning tradition. In the 80s, this school was as winning as anybody. State finals appearance, 1984 at College Park with Ray Kingsfield and the boys. And this is a group that there is a sense of tradition in that community, and starting to see it come back around. The SRYA feeder program has been instrumental in that as well with the size of their youth league program. So good to see Coach Dolch and the Seahawks starting to percolate once again in a positive direction.
And that's another game in which part of the reason why this score was so lopsided is that South River hogged the ball. I mean, they just ran and ran and ran some more. And remember, they got the big guy, Karan Lewis, who's also the heavyweight wrestling champion. He was a finalist for the Larimore Award as the county's top lineman last year. He is a load. So, I would like to run. Joey Foy's a little guy. I think he's about 5'7", 5'8". If he tucks up behind 6'3", 300-pound Karan Lewis, you're not going to see him until he comes out the other side and has 8 yards. So, I'd run behind Karan Lewis all day, and that's what they did.
Just like Travis Naylor used to do behind Big Mitch Suplee in the old days
there
at South River. We talked about the Panthers and the continued success at the youth league level. Chesapeake High School is starting to reap some of those benefits. 21-10 over Severna Park, 2-0 now for the Cougars on the year. Dylan Young passing for 278 yards.
Dylan Young looks legit. Yeah. He could be a guy that's in the running for all-county quarterback, which I don't know that Chesapeake's ever had the first-team all-county quarterback. I'm almost 100% sure they have not. I mean, the greatest player in Chesapeake history is Brandon Steinheim.
He was a running back.
Right, and he was the only Rhodes Trophy winner that has ever come from Chesapeake and went on to an incredible career, record-setting career at Wesley College. But this kid is a good-looking player. He had great numbers in the opener. He's got a big-time receiver in Russell Tongue, Russell Tongue Sr., his father, played at South River and was a great wide receiver, so it looks like he's a chip off the old block. But, this young kid looks legit to me, Pete, and that's a great win. I mean, you're talking Severna Park won their opener, playing, we should have mentioned back home for the first time. Having lost several years, they finally got a home field against Severna Park. But this is one of those games between the mid-level teams to determine kind of who is going to push up into the net, challenge the Old Mills and the Broadnecks and the Arundels of the world. And this is a huge win for Chesapeake.
No doubt about it. Jerry Jennings, Deion Dorsey in a losing cause, 107 and 105 yards rushing for the Falcons in the 21-10 loss in that contest. Look, Josh Ehrlich is a freshman, but Josh Ehrlich showing no signs of that. And when you've got the Boston College commit Ethan Williams to throw the football to, that makes the freshman's transition that much easier. 4 touchdown passes in a 35-0 win over North County.
All right, well, we knew Josh Ehrlich was a player. I mean, from the youth level, playing for Cape St. Clair. I mean, I saw him at the championship game last year because he got the sportsmanship award, and he is a very tall, lanky guy, and, he looks the part. His dad, the former governor, Bob Ehrlich, was a pretty good football player in his day. He played at Gilman and Princeton, and, Josh is a good-looking prospect. Now, obviously, starting on the varsity as a freshman is pretty doggone impressive, but he knows where to go with the ball. I mean, throw it to Ethan Williams, he'll make you look good.
Yeah, but not only that, though, Bill, you're starting in a perennial playoff program. You're not just starting at a school that's got 24 kids coming out and you're maybe the best of the 24. You're starting at a perennial playoff powerhouse, which means you've got to be even that much better when you arrive on campus.
You don't want to be the reason why Broadneck doesn't get where it normally expects to be, which is the playoffs. So so far this kid's been up to the challenge. But like you said, when you got a Division I receiver to help you out, that's a good thing to do.
Yeah, filling in the shoes of the Davis brothers, who've gone to Navy and Lafayette respectively, who have been the previous quarterbacks at Broadneck. On the private side, St. Mary's was the only team that played. Everybody else canceled, landed a winner over the Saints.
St. Mary's would have liked to have canceled.
Probably 40-3, the Bears of Landon get the win over St. Mary's, and that one, Southern was a loser to Friendly by a score of 21-9. When we come back, colleges, winners, Maryland and Navy. Couldn't say that a lot in the same week last year. We will this week. Talk about that next on the Gridiron Review. Welcome back. On the college circuit, rain greeted Memphis and Navy in a critical West Division matchup already early in the season. Memphis, the preseason favorite in the American Athletic Conference, Bill, and yet somehow, some way, I'm still trying to figure out how it happened. Navy found a way to come back in the fourth quarter and win from 2 touchdowns down for the first time since 2008.
Yeah, that game changed in an instant. It just seemed like Memphis was in complete control with time winding down. Navy's offense had really struggled the entire day. Give credit to Memphis. They played tremendously on defense, really caused some problems for the triple option. Marcus Perry looked a little bit out of sorts. So, I mean, it was one of these, Malcolm Perry, I'm sorry. But Malcolm was, struggling. It was basically, and he had 36 carries, which we talked about this in preseason. He's not the biggest, strongest guy. He's not Zach Gaby, who was 215 pounds. Malcolm took some serious hits, had to leave the game twice, but to his credit, showed toughness, came back, and that run that he broke, the 17-yard run, it was the most spectacular 17-yard run you'll ever see. I want to hear your call on that, Pete.
You can go to Twitter at my timeline, at Pete Medhurst, M-E-D-H-U-R-S-T, and you can hear the audio on there. I've got it on the timeline.
There had to have been, Malcolm Perry.
And as I tweeted to go along with it, he basically broke the controller. I mean, it was a video game-like run where he hit the B button to make a move like 4 times within the run.
Yeah.
Backwards, jump stop, jump cut, spin. I mean, he did it all on that run. It was critical. I mean, the Mids had to get some points as time was running out. And, of course, Zach Gaby, the Spalding product, with the go-ahead run in the short yardage play.
So much
for the
credit
Mids.
to Zach. That's one of the things that Coach Niumatalolo highlighted after. He is just so proud of this kid. Here he was, a quarterback last year, starting quarterback who rushed for over 1,400 yards, second highest single season total in Navy history, gets moved to wide receiver. How many guys rush for 1,400 yards in a season and get moved to a different position? He never complained. He just said, I'll do whatever helps the team. And boy, is he helping the team. Had that double reverse pass, which he threw back to Malcolm Perry. He comes in on short yardage situations and converts almost every time. Really, kudos to that kid.
And as I said last week during our broadcast at Hawaii, I said you're going to see Zach Gaby throw the ball from the wide receiver position, and we certainly saw that, and I guarantee you it won't be the last. Meanwhile, some coaches, Bill, have a tendency, and the ones that don't win a whole lot, they try to repair things that aren't broken. On Saturday at Bowling Green, Matt Canada didn't try to do that with Maryland's offense. Bowling Green couldn't stop them on the ground, so Maryland didn't stop running. They ran for over 400 yards as they pulled away from Bowling Green. They trailed 14-10 at the half, but Maryland smoked them in the second half and won 45-14. 2-0 now for the Terps.
All right, well, and Mr. Canada is making a case that if DJ Durkin does not return as head coach, that he deserves to be the head coach. He sure has done a tremendous job in this interim role, leading Maryland to a 2-0 start, and he's been good with the media. He's been just a very solid guy all across the board, so I'll give him a lot of credit. But penalties were the issue for Maryland in the first half of that game. They couldn't get out of their own way. Yeah. But you're right. He decided to just run, and it was everybody. It was Ty Johnson, Lolo Harrison, this guy Fleet Davis, who I didn't even know much about, but he is having
had 2 great games to start the year.
Been fantastic. They've got a nice stable of running backs.
But it does go, though, Bill, with what we've heard. The one thing Coach Durkin and that staff had done, and we've seen it in the recruiting ratings, is they've recruited better players, better talent.
Well, and they've also have focused on, they knew that the Big Ten was a pound-it, smash-mouth and they've recruited some offensive linemen. I think you're starting to see some really good, a lot of them local guys. They are able to play a little smash mouth now. They got some guys up front that can pound you down, and they got a nice fleet of running backs. And you don't want Kasim Hill, who in essence is a first-year starter. You don't want it all on his shoulders.
Though I think if it has to be, he's the guy you want it on if you're Maryland. And clearly, when you look at the early side of the East here, Penn State looked vulnerable against Appalachian State. Michigan State loses at Arizona State. Michigan, awful against Notre Dame, rebounded against Western Michigan. Ohio State, they looked the part so far through 2 games. They look like they've not missed. They look like they've not missed Urban Meyer whatsoever.
Well, and here's interesting: Dwayne Haskins,
who was originally going to go to Maryland until Ohio State came in at the last minute.
Right, he's now starting for Ohio State. But I do believe, I agree with you, Pete. Maryland has finally found that dynamic quarterback that they need in Kasim Hill.
Yep, no doubt about that. When we come back, Ravens and Redskins win in the same week. We couldn't say that a lot last year either. Boy, this is a record-setting show here on the Gridiron Review. We'll come back and talk the pros when we return on the Gridiron Review. Welcome back. By the way, that Navy win over Memphis, for years we've celebrated the triple option. There may have been no defense more maligned a week ago than Navy's defense against Hawaii. Dale Pearson, who of course has been at Navy 23 years now, son Preston went to Broadneck High, played there. What a bounce back for that defensive unit this past week as well. Sean Williams picked up the Americans Defensive Player of the Week award because of his actions on Saturday.
Very deserving, and I had fans sending me emails. They were ready to jump off a bridge. This is the worst defense I've ever seen. I said, it's one game. Hawaii, nobody else has stopped Hawaii so far. They're 3-0 and averaging like 700 yards a game. Hawaii's legit. But yeah, what an incredible job by the coaching staff to get things sorted out. And that defense really is the reason Navy won that game. Sean Williams, 9 tackles, 2 forced fumbles. Huge forced fumble by fellow safety Juan Haley is what set up that touchdown run by Malcolm Perry that we were speaking of. So yeah, no, Navy defense deserves a lot of kudos. They were the catalyst of that victory.
No doubt about that. Meanwhile, the pros this past week, the Ravens just dissected the Buffalo Bills. Bills were a playoff team last year, but it's not the same squad. They still have LaShawn.
Are they an NFL team this year?
They are by schedule.
Yes.
Okay? But we saw Nathan Peterman when he was at Pitt. We knew Nathan Peterman was not an NFL caliber quarterback then. He got lucky. He looked the part in the Under Armour and the shorts at the Combine. Buffalo said, hey, let's look at this guy. Well, his performance on film, the film doesn't lie. His film at Pitt was very average, and his performance in the NFL has been less than average. 5 of 18 plays right into the Ravens' hands, and when the smoke cleared, 47-3 Baltimore on opening day.
A totally dominant defensive performance by the Ravens. But again, as you mentioned, when Nathan Peterman is the quarterback, the Buffalo didn't have a lot of answers. How about Joey Flacco? They've been talking about a renaissance of Joe Flacco. He doesn't have the bulky back. He's moving better. He looks more athletic out there.
He's got some people to throw to finally.
Well, it appears to have hit some home runs in the free agent market with Crabtree. They picked up 3 solid wide receivers, and he seems to have a good connection with them. And let's not discount drafting Lamar Jackson. That's a little kick in the butt when they go and draft another quarterback in the first round. This was the first off season that Joe Flacco actually got together with his wide receivers to try to work on some things. That's something Tom Brady's been doing for years. So, but Joe Flacco looked very good, very efficient, got the ball downfield, 3 touchdown passes, a very impressive effort.
No doubt about it. You know why Joe Flacco does M&T Bank commercials?
Because he's cashing checks.
Because he's cashing big checks in the bank. Meanwhile, the Redskins out in Arizona, and their defense, like the Ravens who smothered the Bills, Redskins defense dominated Arizona. David Johnson, one of the best individual players in the league. 2 big runs early in the game, back-to-back, an 11 and then a 10. After that, it was 7 for 16 for the Arizona Star running back. They were never in this game with the Redskins after the first quarter. Washington wins it easily, 24-6.
Well, those 2 Alabama defensive linemen, when you got 2 guys up front holding the point of attack, it helps everything. It makes Ryan Kerrigan look better. It makes everybody look better. Josh Norman stepped up and made a couple nice hits. I mean, Redskins got some decent personnel on the defensive side of the ball. DJ Swearinger, I mean, you go across the board.
Linebackers are pretty solid right now. And look, you mentioned it, having the big kids up front. DJ Swearinger was calling Deron Payne Big Pain.
Yeah.
We got to get some T-shirts say Big Pain.
Yep.
With Jonathan Allen up front, and then the Virginia Tech rookie Tim Settle now is into that rotation. You've got 3 guys, 300 plus, who can move like lightning for that size. They've really changed Washington's fortunes on that defensive line, and as a result, at least for week 1, changed the results.
And I tell you what, who I love watching play, and it reminds me of when I was a kid and Joe Washington played for the Baltimore Colts, and he was such a dynamic threat, and they always threw the little swing pass out to him. I love this Chris Thompson.
Same number, 25.
Oh, my God. He reminds me of Joe Washington with what he can do. He is so exciting in the open field, and the Redskins are wise to get him the ball as often as possible. But, Alex Smith, he's a game manager. He's going to make the right throw. He's not going to try to do anything he's not capable of. And, I thought the offense looked pretty good.
It's a different offense when Chris Thompson and Jordan Reed are healthy, period.
Wow, absolutely.
And they didn't have those guys for a bulk of the season, especially in the second half last year. And we're still banging on the door of a playoff spot until the last couple of weeks of the season.
Have you gotten your Washington Redskins Adrian Peterson jersey yet?
I have not gotten a Washington Redskins Adrian Peterson jersey.
Right. I mean, AP looked okay, huh?
I'm not. 96 yards on 26 carries. I think we are going to get a chance to see the debut of the Keenan Reynolds Seattle Seahawks jersey. Doug Baldwin sprained MCL, so we may get to see the 85 car for the Seattle Seahawks if he plays. I don't collect many jerseys, but if he plays, I will order that one at NFL.com. That'll do it for us here this week. Our thanks, as always, our thanks to the staffs at Arundel and Demetrius Ballard getting us those youth and high school highlights, respectively, on today's program. And we're going to be reaching out to other staffs and other youth league staffs to get film as we continue on this year on the Gridiron Review. For Bill Wagner, I'm Pete Medhurst. Thanks for joining us this week on the Gridiron Review.